The world thought the Ghost was retiring. For years, the master plan inside the Pentagon was completely straightforward. Build the new B-21 Raider and quietly send the legendary B-2 Spirit to the boneyard. But the script just got ripped to shreds. In a shocking reversal that paralyzed foreign defense attachés at the World Economic Forum, President Trump announced that the United States is reopening the vault. We aren't just keeping the B-2. We are procuring a massive fleet of brand new ones, effectively doubling America's stealth bomber force overnight. Welcome to JetCorps. Today we are breaking down the highly classified deep strike mission that forced Washington to bring a Cold War predator back from the dead, and the terrifying new foreign threat that made it absolutely necessary. To understand why the Pentagon suddenly demanded more of an airframe designed in the 1980s, you have to look at a nightmare scenario that played out just months prior. US planners were staring down the barrel of an anti-access fortress, the hypothetical need to neutralize deeply protected Iranian nuclear infrastructure at Fordow and Natanz. These are not your standard military bases. They are subterranean bunkers buried under solid mountains, reinforced by feet of concrete and ringed by overlapping, deeply layered networks of sophisticated air defenses. You cannot hit them with a standard cruise missile. You have to drop gravity weapons directly overhead. And that last part is the key. A cruise missile can approach low and slow and attempt to sneak around radar. A gravity weapon doesn't get that luxury. It has to be delivered from the exact geometry the weapon needs: altitude, speed, release window. And that forces the aircraft itself to survive the most dangerous part of the envelope. The strategic response to this problem became known as Operation Midnight Hammer. This was a massive, long-range strike exercise built entirely around proving the B-2's unique ability to penetrate those exact types of dense radar nets. Multiple B-2 Spirit bombers launched from Whiteman Air Force Base. The two-man crews endured a grueling 36 to 40-hour mission profile. Think about the human toll of that. You are sitting in a cockpit the size of a walk-in closet for nearly 2 days, managing severe sleep deprivation and highly complex aerial refueling over open oceans. Their objective was to execute a simulated strike using Massive Ordnance Penetrator class weapons. That mission profile is also a logistics exam. You're not just flying a bomber, you're moving a whole chain. Tankers timed to the minute, routes designed around threat rings, and contingency plans for everything from weather to mechanical faults to suddenly hotter airspace. One mistake doesn't just risk a jet, it risks a national strategy. The MOP is a 30,000-pound GPS-guided steel telephone pole. It is an earth-shattering bunker buster designed to dig deep into solid bedrock before detonating, the exact tool required for mountain fortresses. And because it's so massive, only a tiny number of aircraft can realistically carry it in the way planners need, meaning the bomber that can deliver it becomes the bottleneck for the entire concept of operations. Pentagon officials stated the aircraft operated under the strictest emissions control possible. They utilized their low-observable shaping and pinpoint navigation to slip through the electronic net completely undetected. General Dan Kane called it an operational demonstration of exactly what the B-2 was built to do: penetrate, strike deeply hardened targets, and vanish without being tracked. This wasn't a stealth demo for the camera. It was a pressure test of the whole doctrine. Can you still get a heavy payload to the hardest target on the board against modern defenses without turning the mission into a war on day one? This wasn't just a training flight. It was a loud, unavoidable message to the rest of the world. It settled a fierce debate inside the Department of Defense, proving that the B-2 still performs heavy payload deep strike roles that even the newest next-generation platforms cannot immediately replace. But how does a jet designed before the invention of the internet still defeat the radar systems of tomorrow? Because stealth isn't a single invention. It's a stack of decisions that all point in the same direction. Don't give the enemy an easy return signal, don't give them an easy track, and don't give them an easy shot. The B-2 Spirit is a physical contradiction. It stretches a massive 172 feet from wingtip to wingtip, yet through the dark magic of its engineering, it appears on radar screens as something the size of a bird. That bird-sized effect isn't about being small. It's about returning so little usable radar energy that tracking becomes unstable, intermittent, and unreliable. And in air defense, unreliable tracking is basically the same as no solution at all. This drastic signature reduction does not come from a single magic feature. It is an entire ecosystem of low observable design. Look at the silhouette. It lacks a vertical tail stabilizer. On a normal fighter jet, the vertical tail is a massive radar reflector. By deleting it entirely, the B-2's iconic flying wing shape fundamentally redirects incoming radar energy away from hostile sensors. But shape is only half the battle. The airframe is covered in specialized radar-absorbent materials, RAM, that act like a sponge, eating electromagnetic reflections before they can bounce back to a surface-to-air missile site. And that matters, because air defenses don't operate like one radar in a vacuum. They chain sensors together. If one node gets a hint of you, that hint can cue another node, and suddenly, weak contact becomes full track. The B-2's whole job is to deny the first hint long enough to get to weapons release. Then there is the heat problem. The massive engines on the B-2 are buried deep within the wing. They are fed by serpentine inlets, S-curved air ducts designed specifically to hide the highly reflective, spinning titanium turbine blades from enemy radar waves. Furthermore, the searing hot engine exhaust is carefully cooled and diffused along the aircraft's upper surface. By masking this thermal bloom, the B-2 makes it incredibly hard for enemy infrared sensors to lock on. And even when IR sensors get better, they still need geometry and time. A reduced plume buys seconds. In a contested strike, seconds are survival. During Operation Midnight Hammer, the Air Force deliberately threw the aircraft into a simulated threat environment, modeled heavily on advanced Russian-built S-400 variants. The B-2 successfully reached the target without being tracked on its ingress. But here is the insider truth that Hollywood always gets wrong. Stealth is not literal invisibility. It is not a force field. It is a constantly managed, highly delicate balance of planning and physics. Routes are agonizingly chosen to exploit known radar blind spots. Tankers are positioned hundreds of miles away in safe zones. Communications are completely silenced to prevent electronic leaks. The B-2 survives because it doesn't try to brute force the radar. It perfectly navigates the dark gaps between them. And that's why the platform still matters. The jet is only as good as the mission design around it. And the US has decades of practice designing missions where stealth is treated like a limited resource that must be protected. The defense industry wants you to believe that a slick new CGI rendering means a country has won the arms race. They want you focused on shiny brochures and theoretical top speeds. But if you look past the propaganda and care about the brutal, mechanical reality of how wars are actually fought and won, you belong here. Subscribe to JetCore, because the truth about modern warfare is a lot uglier than the headlines. So why is the United States suddenly so terrified of losing its deep strike capabilities? Why hit the panic button and order 25 new B-2s now? Because the American monopoly on stealth is dead. The sky is getting incredibly crowded, and the primary catalyst is happening across the Pacific. China has recently unveiled the J-35A. Visually, the aircraft's external form clearly suggests an iterative, studied improvement over their earlier stealth attempts. It shows a much more refined approach to radar signature reduction, internal weapons bays, and overall aerodynamic optimization. And that matters even if it's only an iteration. Iteration is how you close gaps. It's how you move from "can we build it" to "can we field it at scale." Yet, as any aerospace engineer will tell you, the massive leap from building a sophisticated prototype to fielding a fully mature, combat-ready stealth system takes decades of real operational pressure. One of the absolute clearest areas where deep uncertainty persists is in their engine technology. China is aggressively developing the WS-19 engine family to power this fleet. While Chinese state sources present it as nearing production readiness, open-source intelligence heavily indicates it has not yet demonstrated the long-term reliability, lifecycle endurance, or thermal efficiency comparable to Western designs. Building a stealth fighter is hard. Building a high-performance engine that doesn't melt its own single-crystal turbine blades or smoke on takeoff is infinitely harder. And engines aren't just thrust. They're maintenance cycles, hot section durability, fuel efficiency, and the boring reality of how often jets are actually available on the ramp. A stealth fighter that can't generate sorties is just a museum piece with a weapons bay. And it isn't just the physical hardware. It's the digital code. Sensor fusion, the digital brain's ability to process and distribute massive volumes of data across a battlespace, remains completely opaque. The USAF 35 program spent years agonizingly refining its fusion algorithms through millions of lines of code, multinational testing, and combat deployments. The J-35A's sensor suite has not been validated in the same transparent or brutal manner. Without the relentless feedback loop of actual combat data and software patches, the true extent of the J-35A's situational awareness is purely speculative. You can put a beautiful touchscreen in a cockpit, but if the computer takes 3 seconds too long to process a threat, the pilot is dead. But here is why the J-35A fundamentally terrifies Pentagon planners. It isn't just about the Chinese Air Force flying them. It is about who they are going to sell them to. Beijing is increasingly positioning the J-35A as a highly export-capable platform. Pakistan is widely discussed in global defense reporting as the most likely first buyer, with open-source analyses suggesting a deep interest in acquiring up to 40 of these aircraft. And exports do something that raw capability alone doesn't. They multiply uncertainty. They create new launch points, new basing options, new crisis dynamics, and they force every rival to plan for more unknown scenarios. If such an export deal were finalized, it would mark a permanent shift in world power. For the first time in history, a fifth-generation fighter is hitting the open global arms market. Countries previously locked out of the F-35 program suddenly have a backdoor into the stealth club. Imagine the implications for South Asia. India and Pakistan have a violently competitive military posture. Introducing a stealth fighter into this powder keg drastically changes the math on deterrence, airspace penetration, and crisis escalation. And even if the aircraft is imperfect, the psychological effect is immediate. The defender must assume the attacker can get closer than before, strike with less warning, and force a response under time pressure. That alone can destabilize a crisis. But buying a stealth jet is the easy part. Operating it is the nightmare. Fifth-generation fighters require highly specialized maintenance facilities, highly secure supply chains for radar-absorbent materials, and advanced pilot training programs. Without a robust supporting ecosystem of early warning AWACS platforms and secure data links, a stealth jet is completely isolated. If you just hand a country 40 stealth fighters without the network to support them, they aren't an invincible strike force. They are just expensive targets. And this is where the headline capability collapses into reality. Stealth needs a system around it. Otherwise, it becomes a small, fragile fleet that spends more time waiting on parts than shaping the battlefield. This brings us to the ultimate dividing line between American and Chinese air power. We call it the human software. Even as China fields advanced designs, operational maturity remains the massive differentiator. The US F-35 and F-22 fleets have accumulated tens of thousands of flight hours in actual combat and rigorous training across multiple global theaters. Our pilots know how to manage sensor fusion in contested airspace because they have actually done it. And it's not just the pilots. It's the planners who know what works, the maintainers who know what fails first, and the commanders who have seen how quickly perfect plans die the moment the enemy gets a vote. The US advantage comes from an established global ecosystem. We have mature logistics networks capable of repairing delicate radar-absorbent materials on a pitching aircraft carrier deck in the middle of a typhoon. China is just learning these brutal maintenance lessons now. Fifth-generation air combat relies on the deep systems-level coordination that only comes from real experience and data-driven refinements over years. China's experience with the J-35A in realistic high-threat scenarios is virtually non-existent at this stage. Despite operating similar-looking airframes, the operational edge remains firmly with the US. When you look at the global board, the move to order 25 new B-2 Spirits makes sense. The 2030s won't be a clean, uncontested sky. It'll be crowded, layered, and hostile. Exactly the kind of airspace where good enough gets people killed. The J-35A may be real progress, but it's still unproven under the pressure that actually matters. And the US can't base deterrence on timelines and promises. It needs something that works now. Operation Midnight Hammer underlined the ugly truth. When the target is buried under a mountain and protected by overlapping radar, there's still one aircraft built for that job. The ghost isn't leaving, it's multiplying. This is Jet Core. Stay sharp. If you care about what holds up in the real world, not what looks impressive in a render, you're in the right place.